Greetings and thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're here today. We're going to be going through 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 32 through 40. Quite a few verses. We're not going to stop and read those, so if you want, you can go ahead and do that now. I actually encourage you to do that. Pause it for a second, come back, and we'll break it down, what's going on there. So, see you in a minute. Okay, so first thing to realize is that in 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and 6, Paul addressed issues related to basically reports about the Corinthians. And now he's turning to answer those questions from the Corinthian church. They were basically wrote to him about several issues, and now he's beginning to answer those in chapters 5 and 6. And he spends the majority of the rest of his letter responding to all these different inquiries he's been receiving. So today he's really addressing unmarried believers in the church, whether that person's never been married or whether they're widowed. So either case, not married, Paul is addressing some issues here. So, and I think we could probably spend the rest of our time focusing on either one of these scenarios that he lays out. But the one I want to focus on today is the widow, namely the one who chooses out of faith not to get married, and then really focus on what her qualifications should be, and then what is the church's responsibility in light of all of that. How do we respond in that situation? So that's what I want to look at. So for the case of the widow, she has to meet some qualifications. According to Paul, he actually spends a lot of time giving qualifications for the widow in regards to if she fits these qualifications, then the church can come alongside and help. And that's laid out for us in 1 Timothy chapter 5. So just to break a few things down, first of all, the widow has a couple of options. Number one, biblically, she can get remarried, or two, and that remarriage has to be with another believer. She's not permitted to marry someone outside the faith. So that's option one, marry another believer. Number two is stay unmarried. Those are the two biblical options for someone who's lost their husband. And in this case, Paul's addressing women. We're not going to get into the discussion of male widowers and things like that. But so in light of that, now let's see what kind of responsibility the church has. So the Bible actually has a lot to say about widows. For example, Jesus rebuked the Pharisees for their mistreatment of the widows. So we know that God has a heart for the widows. So the question is, what is our responsibility? How do we honor the Lord in our treatment of the widows that are around us? Well, Paul actually, again, goes through great lengths to describe this. We're going to talk about 1 Timothy 5 and some of those qualifications. And basically, according to Paul, a widow who received financial and material support from the church, again, had to meet these qualifications. The first one was she had to be truly in need, basically completely alone in the world, no family, no one to come alongside her and help her. There's a quote here. It says, if the widow has children and grandchildren, they should learn, first of all, to put their religion into practice by caring for their own family, so repaying their parents and grandparents, for this is pleasing to God. That's 1 Timothy 5:4. So simply put, families, if you have a widow in your family, you're actually commanded by Scripture to come alongside and help that widow. So that would be the first case. Does this particular person have any immediate family that maybe we can come alongside and help and assist? So the next thing is she has to have her hope set on God according to Scripture. And as you can imagine, the destitute place that widows often find themselves in has a way of producing a dependence and a reverence for God and God alone. He is the source of their help. So this often creates an incredible devotion within the woman. So she has to have her hope set on God. And another one's kind of like it. She has to be a dedicated servant of the Lord. And we can think of the prophetess Anna in Luke chapter 2. She didn't depart from the temple. She worshiped with fasting and prayer day and night. So that type of believer. The next one's kind of interesting. She has to be more than 60 years of age. Apparently, in order to receive charity in the early Christian church, eligible widows were actually enrolled on a list. And the age was likely because it was kind of considered the age of retirement, and that's maybe changed a little bit with our ability to extend life. But basically, she can't be able to provide for her own on her own physical ability. And another one is faithful to her husband while he was alive. Another one committed to good deeds like caring for children or showing hospitality and serving God's people. So if you're a widow, you need to ask yourself, do I meet these qualifications currently in my own walk with the Lord? And maybe use those as a guidepost to kind of strive towards those things. But if you're a church member, those are the things to be looking for when we consider helping the widows in the church. So um, I think a practical step that we can take in order to honor the widows in our church, if you're just a church member, that maybe let them know. I mean, obviously, if this is a woman who's got a devotion and she's going to be inspiring your faith by the perseverance that she has. So maybe let them know, hey, the way you walk with the Lord, I know you've got a lot to bear. You're holding up a lot. Let me pray for you. Let me encourage you and tell you how your faith has strengthened mine just by way of watching you navigate through life with what God has given you to do. So encourage them. Let them know that their faith encourages you. But if you are that widow, again, maybe take a look back at those qualifications in 1 Timothy chapter 2 and take a look at yourself. Do I fit those qualifications? Well, may the grace of the Lord be with us. Help us to walk obediently in that. May you guys have a blessed day. God bless you guys.